Hello, good morning. Edgardo Sambo here once again. And this time we are now on episode number 54. And the title for today's episode is Tribulation. The word tribulation in the dictionary is being defined as unhappiness, pain, or suffering or an experience that causes someone to suffer. In our Christian era, people will undergo a time of tribulation, a time of great sufferings which had not been experienced by humankind since the world began. A time of great sufferings that humankind will start to question God why these things are happening to them. And Christians also believe that there will be a second coming of Christ as stated in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 15 to 17, which states, "According to the Lord's own word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left till the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever." These verses state that the dead bodies will rise and come to life again. Their bodies will be glorified and they are going to meet Christ in the air. We who are alive during this second coming of Christ will also be glorified and will also meet Christ in the air. Please read my tract entitled After Death. Now the question is, will the second coming of Christ happen before the Great Tribulation, or will it happen after the Great Tribulation? Some leaders of Christian churches had taught their members that the second coming of Christ will happen before the Great Tribulation for the reason that the second coming of Christ will solve, or rather will save, those righteous Christians from suffering the Great Tribulation. And some leaders of churches had taught their members that the second coming of Christ will happen after the Great Tribulation. And some churches had even stated that the Great Tribulation will last for a period of 7 years. To find out which interpretation is biblical, we have to resort to the Bible to find out the sequence of events that will transpire in the future. Let us use the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 1 to 36. This chapter is very confusing since it had discussed the following topics. Number 1, the destruction of Jerusalem. Number 2, the signs of Jesus coming the second time. Number 3, the Great Tribulation. Number 4, the second coming of Christ, or what we term as the rapture. And number 5, how long will the Great Tribulation be? And number 6, does Jesus Christ know the day and hour of His second coming. I will discuss these topics according to the verses stated in this chapter. In the book of Matthew 24, verses 1 to 2, it states, Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. Do you see all these things? He asked. I tell you the truth, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. In verses 1 to 2, Jesus was telling his apostles that these buildings and temples will all be destroyed in the year 70 AD, approximately 37 years after Jesus' death. In the year 70 AD, the Roman army, headed by General Titus, had totally destroyed and ransacked and plundered the city of Jerusalem. These verses is about the destruction of Jerusalem as proven in the book of Luke chapter 23 verses 26 to 29 as stated. As they led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A large number of people following him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. When Jesus saw these women weeping and wailing, he told them that they should not weep for him, but weep for themselves, because Jesus knew that 37 years after his death, the city of Jerusalem will be totally destroyed by the Roman Empire, causing distress and hardships for its inhabitants. That was why Jesus said that blessed are those women who were not pregnant and not nursing babies, for under these circumstances it would be easy for them to escape from Jerusalem, to escape the invading armies of the Roman Empire. In the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 3 to 14, it states, As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, Watch out that no one deceive you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over, to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But he who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. These are verses 3 to 14. These are the signs that you will notice before the coming of the great tribulation. The verse states, all these are the beginning of birth pains. The word birth pains refer to the great tribulation. As you would notice in our daily lives, some of these signs are now noticeable and already existing, but it does not mean that it is now the great tribulation. These are just the signs that will tell us that the great tribulation is near. To continue, in the book of Matthew, still chapter 24, verses 15 to 20, it states, so when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the roof of his house go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to his cloak. How dreadful it will be on those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in the winter or on the Sabbath. These verses are talking about the city of Jerusalem. The people who could escape should escape in haste, not bothering to go back to the city of Jerusalem to get what they need. If the Roman army attacked on the Sabbath day, the inhabitants of the city of Jerusalem will have a hard time escaping, since all the gates of the city of Jerusalem are all closed during Sabbath. In the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verses 25 to 27, it states, know and understand this, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be cut off and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7 in the middle of the 7. He will put an end to sacrifice and offerings. And on the wing of the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. These verses speak of the prophecy of the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, which happened on 70 AD. In the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verse 31, it states, "His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes this desolation." This verse also speaks about the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. In the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 11, it states, "From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days." This verse also speaks about the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Let me continue. In the book of Matthew chapter 24, still, verses 21 to 25, it states, "For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible. See, I have told you ahead of time." These verses are now speaking about the great tribulation, in which there will be great distress, sufferings, which had not been experienced before, that even the most elect, these are the righteous people that are supposed to be raptured, even the most elect will not be able to join the rapture. For this reason, the days of the tribulation will be cut short, or else no one will be raptured during the second coming of Christ. It is now clear that the great tribulation will happen first before the second coming of Christ. To continue, in the book of Matthew still, chapter 24, verses 26 to 31, it states, "So if anyone tells you, 'There he is out in the desert,' do not go out, or 'Here he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. These verses speak of the rapture or the second coming of Christ, which had been discussed in the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 15 to 17. It is definitely clear that the rapture or the second coming of Christ will happen after the great tribulation, not before. We are the elects that the Bible is talking about that will survive the great tribulation. In the book of Revelation chapter 7 verses 13 to 14, it states, "Then one of the elders asked me, 'These in white robes, who are they, and where did they come from?' I answered, 'Sir, you know.' And he said, 'These are they who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb.'" These are the elects who were able to survive the great tribulation and was raptured during the second coming of Christ. In these verses 26 to 31, it is very clear that the Bible stated that the rapture will only happen after the great tribulation. In the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 32 to 35, it states, "Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that he is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation or this race will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." These verses speak of the length of time of the great tribulation. The fig tree had been compared to the great tribulation. When the fig tree had put forth its leaves, then we know that summer is near. The fig tree had lost its leaves because of the recent season, or it might have been winter time when the fig tree had lost its leaves. On the coming next season, the fig tree had sprouted its leaves again. So we are speaking of seasons here. The fig tree had lost its leaves for a season. A season is at least 3 months or more. Therefore, the great tribulation will only last for a season or 3 months or more, but not for 7 years. After the great tribulation, we know that Christ is now on our doors, or tantamount to saying that the second coming of Christ will now happen. In the book of Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, it states, "No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." No one knows the day and hour in which Christ will come for the second time, not even Christ himself. Only God the Father knows the day and hour of the second coming of Christ. But at least we know that Christ will return after the great tribulation, basing it on the signs that Christ had given us. The sequence of events regarding this topic, the Great Tribulation, had clearly been shown by the Bible. First, we will see the signs that will help us conclude that the Great Tribulation is already near. Second, the Great Tribulation will happen, which would probably last for a season. And thirdly, the second coming of Christ will occur. There were some leaders of churches that attempted to predict the second coming of Christ. They even went to the extent of predicting the end of the world. They predicted to the extent of even specifying a specific date of the second coming of Christ, but all of them failed and nobody ever succeeded. They failed because they did not even bother to read the Bible. If only they had read and understood the Bible, they would have noticed that the second coming of Christ could not be predicted unless the Great Tribulation had already happened, because the second coming of Christ will only happen after the Great Tribulation. There were some leaders of churches that even proclaimed that the Great Tribulation was already happening. Not even Jesus Christ could predict the day and the hour of His own second coming. Only God the Father knows the day and the hour of this second coming of Christ. Through the Bible, we will know what will happen in the future regarding our spiritual salvation. The only way in which our spiritual beliefs will not go astray is we have to read the Bible and understand it. This is the reason why I am writing these tracts, so that Bible readers will have a guide in understanding the Bible. I hope this tract, or what I had read, will help you understand what will happen to us in the future. All these topics I had read are from the book of Matthew, chapter 24, starting from verse 1 up to verse 36, which it had discussed the following topics: the destruction of Jerusalem, the signs of Jesus coming, the second time, the Great Tribulation, the second coming of Christ, or what we term as the rapture, how long will the Great Tribulation be, and does Jesus Christ know the day and hour of His second coming? To my fellow Bible-believing Christians, I do hope that you could pay attention to this video and try to learn something from it, which speaks about the tribulation and the rapture. Which would come first, tribulation or the rapture? The Bible clearly stated that the tribulation will come first, and after the tribulation, the second coming of Christ will occur. I do hope that you would understand this, and in case you would like to view the other blogs that I had recorded, just go to YouTube, and from the word search type my name, Edgardo Sambo, and YouTube will give you episodes 1 up to episode number 54. Have a good day and happy viewing, and I will be seeing you once more 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. Thank you very much, and may God bless us all.